In this video, I'm going to show you some very cool cars that are exempt from paying the ULEZ charge. And it's not as boring as it sounds. These are cool ULEZ cars, or coolez cars. You can have that. Yeah, you can sigh, but you'll be using that next week. Now, for the majority of people who happen to live outside of one of the increasing number of draconian cities on our planet, ULEZ stands for Ultra Low Emission Zone. You might think this is a small topic that only affects a small part of the population, but I bet you didn't know that there are now more than 320 low emission zones, just in Europe alone, and there are more on the way. In Europe, they're just called LEZ, Low Emission Zones. I don't know why ours in the UK are ultra. I guess we're special, for once. Some European countries have special names for these zones because for them, low emission zone just doesn't cut the mustard. In Germany, for example, they're called Umweltzones. In Denmark and Sweden, they're called Miljøzone. And in Norway, they're called... Now, I don't know the rules of the LEZs in other countries, so this video is only relevant to the UK LEZs. Believe it or not, in the UK, we've already got 14 cities with some sort of LEZ activity, with London being the most well known. For anybody who's been on a deep space mission for the last 10 years, a low emission zone is a designated area, usually in a city, that's designed to get rid of the most polluting vehicles and make the air as clean as a swan's fart. So of course cars that fall outside the allowed limits of pollution are banned, right? Wrong! Those in charge really don't care about the planet. They want your money. So you can still drive your belching snot box in most of these LEZs as long as you give the mayor of that town some money. In London, it's £12.50 a day. Any time you pop a wheel inside the M25, the London mayor gets another mile's worth of dinosaur juice for his £300,000 Range Rover Sentinel. So that's all right then. Anywho, if you don't want to cough up £12.50 every single day to drive your car in a LEZ and risk a big fat fine, there are many cars which are exempt from the charge. You're going to need an electric car. Boo! Or a car which is newer than a Euro 4 rating if it's petrol, so generally cars newer than 2007-ish. But if you drive a diesel, it needs to be newer than a Euro 6, so that's generally 2015-ish or newer. But I think the majority of newer cars are really uninteresting. But what if you could drive something really cool and avoid the charges? Something badass. Something that doesn't have an engine out of a moped. Well, that's where this ULEZ stuff starts to get a bit silly. Let's start simple. A smart car diesel with its teeny tiny little 800cc diesel engine. It's small enough to park 2 of them in one space, or 4 if you're desperate. And it's one of the most economical cars ever made. You can drive that in London without paying up, right? No, you can't. But you can drive this Corvette C3 with its 5.7 litre V8 engine. You might even squeeze 13 miles per gallon out of it pottering about in the city. That should keep the polar bears happy. If you think that's batshit crazy, you could be lezzing about in this awesome E34 BMW M5. Its green credentials are first class. 4.4 litre V8 petrol engine piddling out a measly 394 horsepower. Also good for around 13 city miles per gallon. So this is a low emission zone BMW, a lesbian, if you will. Oh, thank you. Right, back to sensible. Maybe, to get around London, you ought to consider this 2015 Fiat Panda 1.2 Multijet. Now that's a small, light, small engine super mini. That'll get you through the low emission zones free of charge. Except it won't. No. So you'll have to settle for something more environmentally friendly like this 1984 Rolls-Royce Silver Spirit with its hippie-approved 6.75 litre V8 engine. God bless them rainforests, Gov. Now hold on. A friend of mine just bought a 2015 Volkswagen Golf 1.6 TDI Blue Motion. That's good for 80 miles per gallon, so he should be fine driving in London and exempt from the charges. Nope. Silly bugger should have bought himself a Lamborghini Countach for £500,000 and saved himself £12.50 a day. See? Bangonomics. Now there are loads of other surprising examples of really economical and recent cars that don't qualify for an exemption from the charges. Like the Toyota Auris 1.4 D4D, and the Citroën C3 1.6 HDI, and the Ford Fiesta 1.6 TDCi. Makes no sense. And there are loads of examples of cars with massive engines that are exempt from driving in the UK low emission zones. the Aston Martin DB7, the Porsche 911 and the Lamborghini Gallardo. Not only will you dodge the ULEZ daily charges, you'll never sleep alone again. But what if us non-millionaires want to enjoy the city life without paying charges every day and still look cool? Are there any ULEZ cars that don't cost the earth? See what I did there? You could go for a Mark II Golf GTI. That is super cool. And you can find a decent one for around £9,000. It's cheap to fuel, cheap to tax, won't depreciate much, and it's dead reliable. If you're handy with the old spanners or you know a good mechanic, you could always opt for an older classic for some great British style. What about a Triumph TR6? A 2.5 litre straight six and a convertible roof, so you can make the most of the shit British weather. A very cool car and very British. Hello. No, I don't need to pay your ULEZ charges. Now clear off before I set the dogs on you. I just got to interrupt the video momentarily to give a mention to this week's fake video sponsor, Good Shag Carpets. Good Shag Carpets was founded by two friends who were frustrated because they couldn't find a decent shag pile carpet anywhere. So they started their own company. Now they're two of the most skilled shaggers in the world and have been shagging professionally for 15 years. The quality of a good shag penetrates deep down to the underlay. Whether you go for a full covering or maybe just your own little shag rug behind the sofa, you can even have a shag up the wall. Your guests won't be able to resist complimenting you on your shag and how it feels against their skin. Are you letting your flooring get you down? Is your carpet making you depressed? What you need is a good shag. Good Shag Carpets are a fake subsidiary of Car Triple TV. Terms and conditions don't exist. Right, one more ULEZ car before I leave you to get off the toilet and go car searching on the internet. Imagine laughing at the chap in the expensive and very dull EV next to you from this, a Porsche Boxster. Now before you jump on the comments and tell me that Porsche Boxster isn't cool, I disagree. They must be cool, because I've got one. Yeah, maybe they're not that cool then. But anyway, they are fun and a world away from a Nissan Leaf. They're pretty cheap nowadays too. You can pick up an older one for around £6,000. They're fairly cheap to run as well if you don't buy a complete dog. Stick to a 2.5 or a 2.7 to keep the repair costs down and you'll be cool too. Nobody else will think so, but who cares? You'll think you're cool and that's all that matters. If you like this video and want to see more, please do subscribe. It's free and it really does help. And if you want to see more car-based bollocks, click on one of these boxes. Okay, see you in the next one then, bye!